Welcome to Whips in the Dungeon. The excitement never ends around here. I'm going to do an unboxing, but it's kind of an unusual unboxing because these are new, but actually they're used whips that were gotten secondhand. One of the things the channel provides is monthly whip practice. And you go, well, I can watch the YouTube videos, I don't really need to go to monthly whip practice. But one of the things monthly whip practice does is it puts you in contact with other whip throwers with similar interests in dungeon play, not only around the country, but around the world. So most of you know I've collected whips over 2.5 decades, and in my lifetime I've owned over 100 kangaroo singletails and varying parachord whips, but mostly kangaroo. But I'm just one collector, so imagine if you come to whip practice every month and you meet other whip enthusiasts that are collectors at varying levels, and you network and you get to know each other and you get to trust each other. And so, for example, the last two unboxings I did, one was from Witchcraft Whips and a set of Bullwhips from Smoky Mountain Whips. Those two whip purchases were funded by my selling some of my Mike Murphy whips to a friend that I'd met through the whip practice that I've known for the last 3 years. And so, you know, to sell a cherished collector's whip like a Mike Murphy to someone that I know and have come to become friends with, that's attended whip practice for almost every month without missing for the last 3 years, means a whole lot more to me as a collector in passing on leather in that way than it would if I just threw those whips on eBay and someone bid on them and bought them and I had no connection with that person at all. Okay, so what recently happened was another example of these connections that happen through coming to whip practice and meeting other whip throwers. I have a very good friend, Robert, who lives in California, who very much likes Viper whips. Well, Viper hasn't been platting now for several years, and I purchased, in my opinion, one of the very last Bullwhips that Viper platted when he was still making whips. Okay, and I have this single three foot Viper Bullwhip, and I hadn't been throwing it very much, and because I prefer throwing 4-foot whips, and it had kind of been sitting in the closet gathering dust, and I knew. And I've also been going on this 2-whip journey. And as you know, buying 2 whips is twice as expensive as buying 1 whip. So my friend Robert has been throwing this type of whip, and I'm gonna unbox it in a minute, but this type of whip that I got in the mail in whip practice and raving about how great they are for the last several years. And I got the idea, well, Robert, how many sets of these whips do you own? And he said, oh, 5 or 6. And I said, well, pick out a match set that you don't throw regularly, that aren't your favorite, and how about we do a trade, a barter, a trade. I'll send you this Viper, probably one of the last Viper Bullwhips that was ever made, and you send me one of the sets that you aren't throwing, and what I needed for my 2-whip journey was I needed a match set of 3-foot Bullwhips. Okay, I have a match set of 4-foot Bullwhips, actually 2 match sets of 4-foot Bullwhips, but I didn't have 3-footers, and there are many occasions where at house parties and in smaller dungeons, you just need the shorter whip. Okay, so this was a way through my connections that we've made through our friendships to pass on a leather kangaroo whip from a whip platter that's not platting anymore to someone that very much cherishes his whips, and me to get an opportunity to throw and experience these whips that Robert has been bragging about for a number of years, And also, by the way, this whip maker is no longer, or is paused, either no longer making whips or is on a pause. The scuttlebutt is this whip maker is not platting, not taking orders right now because he's building a house. As soon as the house gets built, he's going to go back to platting. We'll see if that happens. So I'm going to assume, since you can't order these whips, that these are in that category of from a whip maker that's no longer making whips. So that's it. So why is this box open? Well, good old United States Post Office delivered it to a house about 6 doors down, and because of the beauty of UPS tracking, I was able to go to the post office. They were able to identify where it got misdelivered to, and they went and retrieved it and brought it back to me, but the person that wasn't supposed to get it had already opened it. So it's open, even though we're going to call it an unboxing. So these are these 2 3-foot Bullwhips from Exowhips, and I'll put the name in the description below, but they don't have a website. He took his website down, and normally I don't say negative things about whip makers, but he took his website down but left his Facebook business page up, and when I tried to write him on Facebook, I got no sign of life on the other end. So my opinion is he should either respond to correspondence or take his Facebook page down. He can always put it back up if he finishes building his house and starts platting whips again. So let me read you what, well, let me show you these whips, and then I'm going to read you what Robert sent me as far as a description of what these whips are. So these are parachord-like, but it's not paracord. It's some kind of flat nylon ribbon material. And if I can get in here close, you can see for paracord-like material, this is really nicely platted. It's got a real nice transition, and the taper is really nice. It feels like the fall is shot loaded, and this is a modification Robert likes to do that he's passed on to the whip group at whip practice. He takes an ice pick or an awl and pokes a hole in the end of his paracord fall and fits it with an 8mm split ring, and then uses that split ring to attach his cracker with. And it's also a very quick and easy way to change crackers. And you can not only fit a nylon or paracord whip with a split ring like this, but you could take the end of a leather fall on a kangaroo whip and fit it with a small split ring and do the same kind of modification. So that's a nice contribution Robert's made to our whip group. So let me read you about these whips. They're 3-foot Bullwhips. So Tyler's the name of this platter at Exowhips. Tyler describes the flat nylon lace material as wave lace. However, I've seen it listed as whip maker's lace. Apparently there are only a few manufacturers of that type of lace. I may still have a small piece of that lace material. Tyler was able to arrange with a manufacturer to provide the thickness and width he was looking for in order to braid a whip without having to purchase kangaroo. Given that it is far less frequently used material compared to paracord, I'm sure it was more costly. My first pair ordered in 2015 cost me $250. If he were braiding currently, I'm sure the cost would be somewhere between $350 to $400. Okay. An interesting side note, I asked Sword Guy Builds about using whipmaker's lace, and he knew of it and said that he had tried it and decided it was too hard to work with and therefore focused on paracord. I just recently did a review of some paracord whips that Sword Guy Builds made, and they're very nice for paracord. I believe he mentioned something about it being slippery because it was smoother, less textured than paracord, which is true. I'll be interested in your perspective on the material in Tyler's build. Okay, so Tyler used carbon fiber rod material for handles and offered shot loading, although I declined. So these whips Robert sent me are natural belly. There's no shot in the thong. It looks like it's about, my guess is it's about an 8-inch handle, but it has a fairly long, what I'm going to call a fairly long transition. It rolls out straight with what I'm going to call the belly, although this whip probably is not going to end up with a belly once it gets thrown a little bit. You can tell Robert did not throw these very much. Against the belly, it rolls straight. So we'll check the other one. Rolls perfectly straight against the belly, arcs straight. They're very light, which for 3 foot, you want a nice light whip. Really nice, and requires like no effort to throw. So not only are these going to work in small tight spaces and in house parties, but if I ever end up in the old folks home in a wheelchair, I would easily be able to throw this whip. You can see I'm sitting down. If I was in a wheelchair and disabled, I would easily be able to throw this whip. This is nicer than any paracord that I've ever thrown. I see in very small writing on one of the white lacing. Probably the whip maker took a, or maybe Robert did, I'd have to ask him. They took a very fine Sharpie and wrote 2015. So that indicates the year that these were made. The Turk's head's extremely nice. So these are, for paracord, these fall into the collector's category of whips, not only because of how nicely they're made, but because the platter's not platting currently, not actively platting. Let's see if I can get these going. So, yeah, they throw nicely together, and that's the unboxing. I'm excited about them. They're extremely nice. I'm happy with my trade, with the barter I did. I hope Robert enjoys the Viper Bullwhip and gets many years of use out of it, as I'm going to get many years of use out of these Exo, a match set, 3-foot set of Exowhips. So since Exo is not actively platting, if you're interested in a whip made out of similar material, you're going to want to find a paracord type platter that is that's using lace nylon or wave lace. We got different terms here: nylon lace, wave lace, or whip maker's lace. Those would be the 3 vernacular terms you would look for, and there might be other terms out there. I know 21st Century Whips, when I looked at his website, it looked like there were some other materials he was using, but you would want to, if you inquire at 21st Century, you would want to write and clarify that. Okay, so that's it for Whips in the Dungeon today. I hope you enjoyed this unboxing and getting a chance to look at these nice little whips made with wave lace or whip maker's lace. They're not paracord, but they're paracord-like whips. As always, thanks for watching Whips in the Dungeon.